Hey, Rumbung World Entertainment, and this might be a bit of a long video, but I think we need to talk about it, and of course, it's about the future of the Predator franchise. So, is Predator Badlands a flop? That's the question lighting up the internet right now, and it was meant to be the triumphant big screen return for the Yautja, but for a lot of people, it seems to have hit a brick wall, which it really did. And while everyone is busy debating the box office numbers because that's gone nuts again, the real story, I think, is after, of course, Badlands has now dropped, what's happening behind the scenes. Because while the focus is on Badlands right now, the future of the Predator is what needs to be talked about. So what is the future for Predator now that Badlands has had such a complicated run? And I think we really need to just kind of try and break it down a bit. So, as we know, Predator Badlands, of course, opened to just under 40 million. Well, it's 40 million domestically, 39 million internationally. It came out to be 79 million worldwide. So it didn't open with that 80 that they put out. But then the week started. Its first week's run, full week, and normally Mondays do not great, but then Tuesdays normally pick up a small bit. The Wednesdays normally do better, and then Thursdays kind of dips small, and then your Friday, depending what else comes out, normally kind of it can do okay, but at the same time sometimes it struggles a little bit. Predator Badlands didn't do that. Predator Badlands hit Wednesday and immediately hit that brick wall and stopped. It was crazy. It just absolutely stopped dead in its tracks. The drop off from Friday to Friday was a massive 78%, but its overall week 1 to week 2 drop was also a massive 68%. Now, here's the thing when it comes to Predator Badlands. It was always going to be a lose-lose for whatever it did. What I mean by that is, should it have done incredibly well on the big screen and just earned all the money in the world? Yes, The Running Man did take a small bit away from it, but not a hell of a lot. So did Now You See Me 3. But this weekend, they're all screwed because Wicked is just going to clean up and take all the audience. So that thing came out and it hit that brick wall, but had it done incredibly well? Now they are trying to tell us that it has. Oh, it smashed all these records. It hasn't smashed records at all, especially when you take into account, which they never do, inflation. If the movie made all that money and continued to make money, and this thing was up near the 300s to 400 million dollars, the idea of what Disney would do next is where you go, we would lose, because they wouldn't be looking at it from a point of view thinking, well, that's because the story was great, the acting was great, and people just took to this version. No, it would have been, that's because we made it PG-13 and we were able to get more asses in seats. Ergo, you would have seen Disney pushing for all the Predator movies to be on the big screen PG-13. So we would lose in that sense. However, the fact that it is clearly bombing at the box office, this thing is on par with AVP, which came out in 2004, and it's looking like it's going to top out at around 180. That's terrible, especially when its budget was they say 105. It's probably actually more close to 110, 115. But even with the 1.5 budget, it still has to make over 230 million. It doesn't look like it's even going to hit 200 million. So either way, it's going to bomb. But if it bombs, which it's looking like it will, what'll end up happening with the franchise? It's just going to become a Disney Plus exclusive. So that's the lose-lose portion with this. It's that if it did really well, they would look at it and say, that's because it was PG-13, make them all PG-13. If it fails, that's going to be exclusive now for Disney Plus, because there's no point putting it on the big screen. So no matter what, we were going to lose in one way or the other. But then when you actually look at the stories they were telling and how it's told, the kind of dead end that Dan Trachtenberg has actually managed to put the franchise into. Now, as I've said in my reviews and stuff for Badlands, the issue with Dan Trachtenberg right now is he now has 3 Predator movies out and he hasn't actually finished the story in any of them. So, Prey ends with Nardu saying, you know, something's coming, we gotta leave this place, it's not safe. And then the end credits showed us the drawings of the Yautja ships coming down. So, we didn't get that continuation. Killers. Yes, we went through the 3 time periods, but then they ended up in the future because they were put on ice, basically, to be brought out. And we had the Viking woman being put back on ice, while the Japanese warrior and the pilot, the World War II pilot, steal one of the Predator ships and go running off with the Predators going, right, let's go hunt them. Incomplete story, and it ends. And of course, Badlands ends on a cliffhanger, basically, when he Deck defeats his father, and then the next ship shows up and it's his mother. Incomplete stories. However, the issue right now is we keep hearing them talking about now, oh, we're in talks with Arnold Schwarzenegger to bring Dutch back. Here's the issue right now that they've put themselves in. Prey is still meant to get a sequel. They want a Prey 2. Question now is, how do you do a Prey 2 when you've shown us that Nardu was taken from that time period and put in stasis and is now in the future? So how can you do Prey 2? There's no point in you giving us a prequel to basically Killer of Killers, because what would be the point? The flintlock is the issue. The flintlock is where he's put himself into a corner where it doesn't make sense to the whole franchise as it is. Nardu gets the flintlock. She's given it by the guy whose flintlock it is. I can't remember the name on it. She defeats the Predator in that movie. We see via the drawings at the end that the Predators come down. We then see in Killer of Killers, the very next movie, that she is in stasis, but the flintlock is being used. The flintlock is out in the arena. The World War II pilot is the one who uses it. Now, issue here is, why is the flintlock there with her when Harrigan is given it at the end of Predator 2? Problem then you have is, we see in the extended edition of Killer of Killers that Harrigan and Dutch are there. So then the question becomes, well, which one of them had the flintlock? But here's the next issue that he's established with people being taken after beating the Predators, is the fact that why was Harrigan given the flintlock as a trophy? That's the reason. I believe it's Grey Wolf. I think that's what the older Predator is called that gives him the flintlock. Why would he give him a trophy if he knows they're just going to come back to take him? That makes no sense. Nor does the fact that Dutch is there, because how did the Predators know about Dutch? We never saw the Predator, the jungle hunter in the first movie, communicate with any other Predators. We never saw him sending any messages back. And what was he sending messages saying? Oh, there's a team here and there's this one dude, he's a badass. No, because right up to the end, that Predator had Dutch dead to rights. The only time he didn't is when the log dropped on him and he set the self-destruct. That's the only moment where he could have maybe relayed him, but he doesn't. Now people might argue, well, maybe he wasn't just putting in the code for the nuke on his arm, maybe he was also sending a message. No, it's clear that he's only setting up the thing to go off. Plus, how far away is their planet that a message could get there instantly? It wouldn't. So how did the Predators know about Dutch? How did they know what he looked like? How did they know where to find him? Because he defeats that Predator in a jungle. He's not in a jungle after that movie. So where did these Predators find him? These are all the issues that Dan Trachtenberg has now introduced into the Predator franchise. So the flintlock is one of the key elements that has truly screwed him over. Yeah, he handed it to Nardu in the Prey movie. everybody questioned now when he showed that there was meant to be a predator invasion basically coming down. Okay, one of these obviously has to kill and beat Nardu and take the flintlock. And that's how the flintlock ends up there with the predators. So that by the time we get to Predator 2, Grey Wolf is giving Harrigan the flintlock. But now you have Nardu and Harrigan in stasis. So where does the franchise go and what do they do? Because the other issue he's now established is if you beat a predator, well, they just take you anyway. They kidnap you. They come, they abduct you, they make you fight the other champions, and then you get to take on the gigantic king predator thing that's there. So he's really muddied the water. Now, the fact that this movie, Badlands, is failing right now at the box office, it's a bad indication that all these answers are going to end up being answered on Disney Plus. If Disney are even willing to fund more of these movies. Because here's the thing, they were making all these other ones for next to nothing. They made Alien Romulus for like 80 million. And of course they got their tax break, so it ended up being like 65 million. They made Prey for 50 million, I think it was. They made Killers for something like 70 million. Which is funny that the animated movie costs more than live action. And then they jumped everything up to over 100 million. And it's like, why did you do that? That was stupid to do. Like, you should have tested the waters first. You should have made this for about 70 million and test the water. If it was made for 70 million, this had a higher chance of succeeding. It probably still would have struggled, but it would have had a higher chance. And I love this. You do see people out there still trying to say, well, it's not a flop yet. And, you know, that, yeah, the 68% drop isn't great, but it's not the worst and all this type of crap. These are the same people who have absolutely no issue saying, well, The Running Man absolutely bombed in its opening weekend, didn't it? It was made for the same amount, and it had next to no marketing for that one, so they didn't spend anywhere close to what Badlands would have had to have spent on marketing. It only came in like 10 million less than Badlands, yet they're already jumping on, well, that's an absolute flop. Well, if that's a flop, then Badlands is absolutely a flop. But the franchise right now, it's not in a great spot. It was, again, the problem I had was Prey. I like Prey, don't like the ending. Killers, I think that's an okay movie, don't like the ending. And Badlands, it's just a garbage fest of a movie. It's a horrible Disney princess predator, that's what that thing is. It's not in a great place. He screwed himself by putting these characters out of their timelines and putting them into a future where they shouldn't be. And it all pretty much came down to the fact that they used the flintlock. The fact that a flintlock may be the very thing that derails a lot of these stories is crazy. But that's the conversation I think we needed to have, is where does the franchise go now? Does it continue on the big screen? If it does, can they bring the budgets down? And would it continue to be PG-13? Does it continue on Disney Plus? If it does, can they get those budgets down? And do they continue PG-13 or do they go back to R-rated? What do they do? Do they do prequels? Do they do sequels? What do they do? Well, only time is going to tell, but it's not looking good, especially on the big screen, thanks to Badlands. But what do you guys think? Do you think it's in a healthy place? Do you think Dan Trachtenberg still's the right guy for the job? Let me know what you think about all this. And with that, I shall leave it there for this one. So do like, share, subscribe and all that good stuff. Cheers. I'll catch you in the next.